Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going to be cracking open Cal Newport's Deep Work. And, you're all about maximizing productivity and getting things done. You want to level up.
Yeah.
So we're going to break down some of the key insights from Deep Work and hopefully give you some seriously actionable strategies.
I think they'll find it insightful. It's a book that really resonates in our world of constant distractions.
Absolutely. The book starts by defining this idea of deep work.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, at first glance, I was like, okay, focus, concentration.
Yeah.
I got it.
Right.
But Newport takes it way deeper.
He's not just talking about any kind of focus. Deep work, as he defines it, are those professional activities where you're laser focused, you're blocking out all distractions, and you're pushing your cognitive abilities to their absolute limit.
So it's not just about checking things off your to-do list.
No.
It's about engaging in work that truly challenges you mentally.
Exactly. And think about it, like this deep work is to your brain what weightlifting is to your muscles. You're essentially training your mind to become stronger and more capable.
I love that analogy. I'm a sucker for a good analogy. But here's the thing that really struck me. We live in a world of constant distractions, emails, notifications, social media. It almost feels like our brains are wired for distraction, not deep work.
Yeah, and that's what makes this book so relevant. What's fascinating is that as our world becomes more connected, deep work becomes both rarer and more valuable. The ability to truly focus is becoming a superpower.
So it's not just about working harder. It's about working smarter by tapping into this increasingly rare skill.
Right. Newport argues that the benefits of deep work go way beyond just getting more done. It actually impacts how you learn and even your overall sense of fulfillment.
Now you've got my attention, so tell me more about these benefits. Why should our listener prioritize deep work? What's in it for them?
Well, imagine you're working on a complex project, something that requires real mental effort. With deep work, you could potentially achieve in 2 focused hours what would normally take you an entire distracted day.
Whoa, that's a huge difference. So we're talking about a significant increase in productivity.
Exactly, and it's not just about speed. Newport also talks about how deep work accelerates skill development when you're deeply focused. You're pushing your brain to adapt and grow, almost like you're giving it a mental workout.
So instead of just passively consuming information, you're actively engaging with it, forcing your brain to make new connections.
Absolutely, and that leads to a much deeper understanding and mastery of whatever skill you're working on.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the fulfillment piece?
Yeah.
I can see how mastering a new skill would be incredibly rewarding, but is there more to it than that?
There is. When you're able to create something truly meaningful to produce work that you're proud of, it brings a sense of satisfaction that you just don't get from shallow tasks like checking emails or attending endless meetings.
Right, because those things are rarely, if ever, truly challenging us mentally.
Exactly. They keep us busy, but they don't necessarily contribute to a sense of accomplishment or purpose.
So deep work is not just about getting things done faster. It's about engaging in work that is mentally stimulating, that allows us to grow, and that ultimately contributes to a deeper sense of fulfillment.
Precisely. And this is where Newport's insights become incredibly powerful. He doesn't just tell us that deep work is good for us. He provides a framework for actually achieving it.
Okay, I'm ready to hear about this framework, but first I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical. Our brains are wired for distraction, right? So how do we actually train ourselves to focus deeply, especially in a world that seems determined to pull us in a million different directions?
That's where things get really interesting. You see, one of Newport's core arguments is that we need to embrace boredom.
Oh, and embrace boredom. I thought we were talking about being more productive, not sitting around twiddling our thumbs.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it. Our brains are constantly seeking stimulation. We're addicted to the dopamine rush of notifications and new information. And that constant stimulation is actually weakening our ability to focus.
You're saying we've become so accustomed to instant gratification that we've lost the ability to simply be present, to sit with our thoughts without immediately reaching for a distraction.
Exactly. We've forgotten how to be bored, and that's a problem because boredom, as Newport argues, is a key ingredient in cultivating deep work.
So are you suggesting that by intentionally embracing boredom, by resisting the urge to constantly check our phones or jump online, we can actually strengthen our ability to focus?
That's exactly what he's suggesting. He even calls it training your focus. It's about gradually increasing the amount of time you can spend without distraction, just like you would gradually increase the weight you lift at the gym.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this fits into the whole deep work philosophy, but how do we actually put this into practice? I mean, are we talking about scheduling boredom time in our calendars?
It could be as simple as that. But Newport provides a more structured approach with his 4 key rules for cultivating deep work.
All right, let's hear them. What's rule number one?
The first rule is quite simply work deeply.
It's straightforward enough, but I have a feeling there's more to it than just telling ourselves to focus.
Right. Newport emphasizes the importance of creating rituals around deep work. Think of it as setting the stage for focused concentration. This could mean designating a specific time of day for deep work, setting up a distraction-free workspace, or even developing a pre-work routine that helps you transition into a focused mindset.
So it's about building habits that trigger deep work, almost like signaling to your brain, okay, it's time to get serious.
Exactly. And it's also about being intentional with your time. Newport recommends scheduling specific blocks for deep work and guarding that time fiercely during those blocks. No emails, no meetings, no social media, no distractions whatsoever.
I'm already feeling the resistance from my inbox, but I can see how powerful this could be if you can actually stick to it. What's the second rule?
Rule number 2 is all about that counterintuitive idea we were discussing. Embrace boredom.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've established that our brains are wired to seek out novelty and stimulation. So how do we actually rewire them to embrace boredom? I mean, am I supposed to just sit there and stare at the wall?
Not necessarily staring at the wall, but you're getting the idea. It's about resisting the urge to constantly check your phone or jump onto social media whenever you have a free moment. Instead of pulling out your phone while you're waiting in line or riding the bus, try just sitting there and being...
This is going to be harder than it sounds, but okay, I'm willing to experiment. Let my mind wander, be present in the moment, resist the urge to check Instagram for the 10th time in an hour. Got it. What's next?
Rule number 3 might be even more challenging for some. Quit social media.
Well, okay, that escalated quickly. Is he suggesting we all become digital hermits?
Not necessarily, but he does advocate for a serious reevaluation of our relationship with social media. He suggests conducting a little experiment. Take a break from each of your social media platforms for 30 days and honestly assess the impact.
So it's not about quitting cold turkey. It's about taking a step back and honestly evaluating the role social media is playing in our lives.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what value is each platform adding to my life? Is it helping me achieve my goals? Is it contributing to my well-being? Or is it just a source of distraction and mindless scrolling?
I think a lot of us would be surprised by the answers if we were truly honest with ourselves. It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game and the endless feed of information.
It is, and that's why this rule is so crucial. It's about being intentional with our time and energy and recognizing that social media is often designed to keep us hooked, not to help us focus or achieve our goals.
This is really resonating with me. I can definitely see how social media, even in small doses, can fragment our attention and make it harder to focus on deeper work. All right, I'm ready for the final rule. What's number 4?
The 4th rule is drain the shallows.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
It's about minimizing the amount of time and energy we spend on shallow work, those tasks that keep us busy but don't actually contribute to meaningful results.
So we're talking about things like responding to emails, attending unnecessary meetings, filling out paperwork, even scrolling through social media.
Exactly. These are the tasks that often fill up our days but leave us feeling drained and unfulfilled at the end.
Because we haven't actually accomplished anything truly meaningful.
Right. Newport argues that we need to be much more ruthless about eliminating or minimizing shallow work so that we can free up time and energy for deep work.
So it's not just about adding deep work into our schedules. It's about actively removing the things that are preventing us from doing it in the first place.
Exactly. And he offers some practical strategies for doing this. One is time blocking, where you schedule your day in blocks and dedicate specific blocks to deep work. Another is learning to say no to commitments that don't align with your goals.
It's about being protective of your time and energy and recognizing that every yes to something shallow is a no to something deep.
Precisely. And this is where Newport's thinking goes beyond just individual productivity hacks. He connects his ideas to a broader hypothesis he calls the deep work hypothesis.
Intriguing. Tell me more about this deep work hypothesis.
The hypothesis states that in our increasingly distracted world, the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare. And as a result, it's becoming incredibly valuable.
It makes sense. It's a classic supply and demand situation, though the rarer a skill becomes, the more valuable it is to those who possess it. But how do we actually ensure that we're consistently prioritizing deep work amidst the chaos of everyday life?
That's where Newport introduces the 4 disciplines of execution. A framework designed to help individuals and teams achieve their goals by focusing on the work that truly matters.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about these 4 disciplines.
Your first discipline is focus on the wildly important. It's about identifying the 1 or 2 goals that will have the biggest impact on your life or work and ruthlessly prioritizing them.
So it's not about trying to do everything, it's about focusing your energy on the things that will truly move the needle.
Exactly. The second discipline is act on lead measures. This means focusing on the activities that directly contribute to those wildly important goals rather than getting bogged down in vanity metrics or surface level tasks.
Can you give me an example? I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the difference between a lead measure and a vanity metric.
Sure. Let's say your wildly important goal is to write a book. A lag measure would be the number of words written. It's a result, but it doesn't tell you what you need to do to get there. A lead measure would be the number of hours spent writing each day. That's something you have control over, and it directly impacts your progress toward the goal.
Ah, I see. It's about focusing on the inputs, the things you can control, rather than just the outputs, which are often influenced by factors outside of your control.
Exactly. The third discipline is keep a compelling scoreboard. It's about finding ways to track your progress toward your wildly important goals in a way that keeps you motivated and accountable.
Yeah, so it's not just about setting goals and hoping for the best. It's about creating a system for monitoring your progress and celebrating those wins along the way.
Right. And that celebration is important. It keeps the momentum going. And finally, the fourth discipline is create a cadence of accountability. This means establishing regular check-ins to review your progress, make adjustments if needed, and hold yourself accountable to the commitments you've made.
It's like having a built-in support system to keep you on track and help you stay focused on what matters.
Exactly. And what I find fascinating is how seamlessly these 4 disciplines connect back to the principles of deep work. It's not just about finding isolated pockets of focus. It's about weaving deep work into the fabric of your goals in your daily life.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've explored the concept of deep work, the science behind it, the benefits, the rules for cultivating it, and even this framework for putting it all into practice. It's clear that deep work is more than just a productivity technique. It's a philosophy, a way of working and living that can lead to greater focus, greater fulfillment, and ultimately greater success.
Absolutely. And what makes Cal Newport's work so valuable is that he provides actionable strategies that anyone can implement regardless of their profession or their life circumstances.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier that really struck me. The idea of embracing boredom. I've been thinking about it throughout our conversation, and I'm realizing just how counterintuitive it is in our current culture. We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us to be busy, to be productive, to fill every spare moment with something stimulating.
It's true. We live in a culture of distraction where busyness is often mistaken for productivity and boredom is seen as something to be avoided at all costs.
But what Newport is suggesting is that boredom is actually a crucial ingredient for deep work. By allowing ourselves to experience moments of quiet, to resist the urge to constantly seek out stimulation, we can actually strengthen our ability to focus and engage deeply with the tasks that truly matter.
And it's not easy. It takes conscious effort to resist the pull of our devices and the allure of constant novelty, but the rewards, as we've discussed, are well worth the effort.
So as we leave our listeners to ponder all of these incredible insights, I want to issue a challenge. Choose one strategy from this deep dive that resonates with you. Maybe it's creating a ritual for deep work, or practicing embracing boredom for a few minutes each day, or even conducting a social media experiment. Commit to trying it for a week and observe the impact it has on your productivity, your focus, and even your overall sense of well-being.
I love that challenge. And remember, deep work is a skill. It takes time and practice to develop. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results immediately. Just keep practicing, keep experimenting, and keep pushing yourself to go deeper.
That's all for today's deep dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious, stay focused, and keep diving deep.